Imagine, if you will, a moonlit field in the ancient kingdom of song. The air is cool, the silence is heavy, and the only sound is the ragged breath of a man who is utterly exhausted. This farmer has spent his entire day hunched over his rice crops, not weeding, not watering, but pulling. With a desperate, trembling hand, he reached for every single sprout and tugged it upward, just an inch or two, convinced that nature was moving too slowly. He believed that through the sheer force of his will, he could command the earth to accelerate. When he finally returns home, boasting to his sons that he has helped the garden grow, he sleeps the sleep of a hero. But as the first light of dawn touches the soil, the truth is revealed. Every single sprout, uprooted from its source and severed from its dark, nurturing foundation, has withered away. By trying to cheat time, he invited death. We laugh at this man, but if we are honest with ourselves, we are looking into a mirror. Our modern era has turned us all into that impatient farmer. We live in the friction of the instant, a world where a 3-second delay in a digital page feels like a personal affront to our dignity. We have been conditioned to believe that waiting is a void, a hollow, wasted space that must be filled with the noise of scrolling or the frantic energy of doing. We feel a low, thrumming anxiety in our chests, a fear that if we aren't constantly moving, the world will leave us behind. We are tired, not because we are doing too much, but because we are fighting the natural timing of our lives. We pull at our careers, our relationships, and our own healing, wondering why we feel so disconnected, so brittle, so dead inside. We have forgotten the strategic art of the wait. Before we walk deeper into this forest of wisdom together, I want to ask you to join our circle. If these reflections find a home in your heart, please subscribe and leave a mark of your presence with a like. It helps this small sanctuary of silence survive in a world of loud noise. I often wonder where these words land. From which corner of the world are you listening to me today? Tell me in the comments. It brings me great joy to know how far our shared silence travels. And if you feel moved to support this work, there is a small heart with a currency sign beneath this video. A super thanks. As this channel seeks depth over viral trends, YouTube's rewards are often slim. So any contribution, no matter how small, acts as oil for our lamp, keeping these daily reflections burning bright. Sometimes, the spoken word is just the beginning, and some truths require a more intimate written path. I have gathered the essence of these timings into a companion for your journey, a small guide I called Master the Right Moment. It is a condensed reflection on the fundamental principle of timing, learning when to strike and when to remain as still as a stone. If you feel your soul needs to anchor itself in this knowledge, you can find it in the link I've left in the comments. Let us now turn our gaze to the first pillar of our journey. We must begin by understanding the great river of existence through the lens of Wu Wei. In our frantic society, we often mistake waiting for quitting. We assume that if we are not visibly struggling, we are failing. But the old masters, like Lao Tzu, whispered a different truth. He observed that nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Think of the water in a mountain stream. When it encounters a massive boulder, it does not scream in frustration. It does not try to push the rock out of its path through sheer muscular effort. It waits. It pools. It rises slowly, quietly, until it finds the subtle path around or over the obstacle. This is Wu Wei, effortless action. In your modern life, this might manifest in the suffocating stagnation of a career. You feel trapped, passed over, or invisible. The noise in your head tells you to scream, to force a confrontation. to jump into a new venture out of pure panic. But the wisdom of the Tao suggests that this stagnant time is actually your pooling phase. Instead of fighting the rock, you use this time to perfect your craft in the fertile silence. You sharpen your skills when no one is watching. You become so heavy with talent and character that when the tide of opportunity inevitably rises, you don't have to struggle to reach the top. You simply float there. You aren't pushing the river, you have become the river. The anxiety we feel is often just the friction caused by our ego rubbing against the reality of the present moment. We want the fruit, but we hate the season of the root. We see the world as a series of problems to be solved with force, but the Tao sees a series of patterns to be joined with grace. When you practice the strategic weight of Wu Wei, you are not being passive. You are being profoundly active in your observation. You are watching for the crack in the armor of the situation. You are waiting for the exact moment when the least amount of effort will produce the greatest result. This is the difference between a man who exhausts himself chopping at a tree with a dull axe and the man who waits, sharpens his blade in the shade, and fells the giant with 3 precise strokes. Ask yourself, where in your life are you currently pulling at the rice sprouts? Is it in a relationship where you are demanding a commitment that hasn't matured yet? Is it in a creative project that feels forced and clunky? What would happen if you stopped the voragem, the whirlpool of forced energy, and allowed yourself to enter a state of maturation? To wait strategically is to trust that the universe has a rhythm that your intellect cannot always grasp. It is to recognize that sometimes the most productive thing you can do is to remain still, allowing the mud of your mind to settle until the water becomes clear. In that clarity, the right action reveals itself, not as a choice you make, but as a natural extension of who you are. Consider now the silent mystery of the Chinese bamboo. This is a story of faith in the invisible, a direct challenge to our obsession with immediate results. When you plant a seed of this bamboo, you see nothing for the first year. You water it, you tend the soil, but the earth remains stubbornly bare. The second year passes. Nothing. The third and fourth years follow, and to any passerby, you look like a fool tending a patch of empty dirt. You are waiting, and in our modern eyes, you are failing. But in the 5th year, a miracle occurs. The bamboo shoots out of the ground and grows 80 feet tall in just 6 weeks. The question we must ask is, did the bamboo grow 80 feet in 6 weeks? Or did it take 5 years? The answer, of course, is that it took 5 years. During those years of outward silence, the bamboo was engaged in an intense subterranean struggle. It was growing a root system so deep and so complex that it could eventually support the massive height of its future self. If it had grown upward before it had grown downward, the first wind would have toppled it. This is the law of internal cultivation, as taught by the sage Zhuangzi. Our culture is obsessed with visibility time, the moments we can post on social media, the promotions we can announce, the trophies we can display. But the Tao is concerned with foundation time. We are currently living in an era where we want the 80-foot growth without the 5-year root system. We see this in the hustle culture that burns out young souls before they even reach 30. They have no roots. They have no abyss of experience to draw from. When you are learning a new skill, perhaps a language, a complex instrument, or the nuances of a new trade, you will invariably hit a plateau. This is the abyss of the bamboo. It feels like you are making no progress. The noise of the world tells you that you've reached your limit, that you should quit and find something faster. But this plateau is not a wall. It is a cellar. It is the phase where your brain and soul are rewiring themselves, anchoring the knowledge into your very bones. If you can endure the weight of the plateau without losing your spirit, you are building the resonance necessary for mastery. The art of waiting is the art of valuing what is hidden. We must learn to cherish our invisible years. These are the years of parenting when the house is a mess and no one thanks you. These are the years of the struggling business when you are the only one who believes in the vision. These are the years of personal healing when you are quietly dismantling old traumas without any outward sign of success. You are not wasting time. You are building the root system that will prevent you from snapping when the storms of life eventually hit your peak. The wait is the work. The silence is the growth. Do not let a world obsessed with the instant talk you out of your maturation. Trust the soil. Trust the darkness. Something is happening beneath the surface that the sun cannot yet see. This brings us to a truth that our frantic world finds almost offensive: the profound utility of the gap. We are a generation that has become terrified of the hollow. We fill every elevator ride with a screen, every walk with a podcast, and every moment of solitude with a digital noise that prevents us from ever truly meeting ourselves. But look at a common clay bowl. We think its value lies in the ceramic, the beautiful glaze, or the sturdy base. Yet, as the old masters taught us, the bowl is only useful because of the empty space in its center. Without that void, it cannot hold water. It cannot nourish you. The weight is not the absence of life. It is the space that makes life functional. In the ancient Taoist tradition, this is known as Shu, the fertile silence. It is the understanding that the gap is not a vacuum to be feared, but a womb where clarity is born. In our modern existence, we treat the pauses in our day as errors to be corrected. When we wait for a kettle to boil, or for a file to download, or for a person to finish their sentence, we feel a surge of irritation. We feel we are losing something precious. But what if we saw these gaps as the only moments where we are actually free? When you are doing, you are a slave to the task. When you are waiting, you are returned to your own being. Consider the osmosis of a difficult conversation. We have all been there, in a heated argument with a partner or a stinging exchange with a supervisor. The air is thick with tension, a voragem of ego and defense. Our modern instinct is to react instantly, to fill the silence with a sharp retort that protects our pride. But here, the strategic art of the wait becomes a shield. If you can cultivate the habit of the 3-second gap, you invite wisdom into the room. In those 3 seconds, you are not just waiting. You are allowing the ruido, the noise of the ego, to dissipate. You are giving the Tao of the situation room to breathe. By the time you speak, your words are no longer weapons. They are bridges. This is the Ma, the space between the notes that makes the music beautiful. Without the silence between them, music would be nothing but a terrifying, continuous scream. We must learn to anchor ourselves in these gaps. We must stop seeing a slow day as a failure of productivity and start seeing it as the shuyu that allows our next great action to have a container. A life without gaps is like a book without margins or spaces between the words. It is unreadable, exhausting, and ultimately meaningless. When you find yourself in a long line or a traffic jam, do not reach for the distraction of the screen. Instead, inhabit the bowl. Feel the space. Let the frantic pulse of the world beat against your stillness and find that it cannot penetrate you. You are the silence that contains the noise. As we inhabit this stillness, we begin to notice a second prison we have built for ourselves: the trap of the timeline. We are haunted by a phantom we call when. So, when will I get the promotion? When will I find the one? When will my life finally begin? We have married our happiness to a specific date on a calendar that the universe never agreed to sign. This creates a state of perpetual impermanence, where we are never truly home because we are always looking toward a future horizon. This is the social clock, a rigid mechanical monster that tells us we are late if we aren't married by 30 or successful by 40. The sage Liezi spoke of the spontaneity of the universe, a flow that ignores our artificial deadlines. Nature has no late. A flower is never late to bloom. It blooms when the conditions of soil, sun, and water achieve a perfect resonance. When we try to force our lives to adhere to a social timeline, we create what I call the scent of lack. This is a subtle, desperate energy that we radiate into the world. You see it most clearly in the realm of dating and relationships. When someone is desperate to find a partner because they fear the ticking of their biological or social clock, they often push away the very love they seek. Their weight is filled with anxiety, and that anxiety creates a voragem that repels others. To wait strategically is to detach from the when and to anchor yourself in the what and the how. It is to trust the universal clock over the ticking of your smartphone. This is not a passive surrender, but a sophisticated transfiguration of your desire. You still want the goal, but you no longer let the timing of that goal define your worth. When you move through the world without the scent of lack, you become a magnet. Because you are not waiting for someone to complete you, you are already complete in your own waiting. Think of your life as a fecund garden. You cannot scream at a seed to become a tree by Tuesday. You can only provide the right environment and then get out of the way. Much of our modern suffering comes from the ego's desire to be the choreographer of the universe. We want to hold the baton and conduct the stars. But the Tao is a self-organizing flow. When you stop obsessing over the deadline, you begin to notice the subtle opportunities that you were previously too frantic to see. You realize that waiting is actually a form of deep listening. You are listening for the right moment, the kairos, the moment when the fruit is so heavy it practically falls into your hand. By refusing to be a slave to the when, you become the master of the now. You find that the abyss you feared, the fear of being left behind, was actually a vast open field where you are finally free to walk at your own pace. We now enter a territory of the spirit that is perhaps the most difficult to master, yet the most vital for our survival in this frenetico age. In the ancient martial traditions, there is a practice called Zhanzhuang, the art of standing like a tree. Imagine a practitioner standing in a forest clearing as a storm begins to brew. The wind howls, the branches of the surrounding trees whip violently, and the leaves are scattered in a desperate voragem of movement. But the practitioner remains still. To the untrained eye, they are doing nothing. They are just waiting. But internally, every muscle, every tendon, and every breath is engaged in a profound act of anchorar, anchoring the soul to the center of the earth. In our modern lives, we are taught that in a crisis, we must do something. When the stock market dips, when a scandal breaks at work, or when a misunderstanding threatens a friendship, our biological instinct screams at us to move, to react, to strike back. This is the ruido of the animal brain. We believe that movement equals control. But the wisdom of the standing tree teaches us that the highest form of power is often found in the refusal to be moved. When we are caught in a storm of external chaos, our frantic reactions only add more wind to the gale. We become part of the turbulence instead of the solution. Think of a high-pressure meeting where voices are rising and tempers are flaring. Most people in that room are like leaves in the wind, tossed around by the emotions of others. But there is often one person who remains silent. They are not checked out. They are actively observing, They are waiting for the subtle shift in the energy of the room. Because they are still, they can see the patterns that the frantic minds miss. They are building a silencio fertile within themselves. When they finally do speak, their words have the weight of an ancient oak, cutting through the static and grounding the entire room. This is the strength of the strategic wait. It is the realization that stillness is not the absence of energy, but the highest concentration of it. We must realize that our constant need to fix things immediately is often a mask for our own fear. We cannot bear the tension of an unresolved problem, so we pull at the rice sprouts just to feel like we are in charge. But by practicing the internal alchemy of the wait, we learn to sit with the discomfort of the unresolved. We allow the situation to mature. We wait for the mud to settle so that our intervention can be precise and effortless. This maturation of our own character is the most fecundo work we can do. It is the process of becoming the person who is capable of holding the power when it finally arrives. Remember, the tree that stands still through the winter is the only one that has the strength to burst into blossom when the spring finally speaks. This brings us to the final movement of our shared reflection, the deep understanding of the cycle of return. The universe does not move in a straight line. It moves in a circle. In the I Ching, the ancient book of changes, there is a specific hexagram known as Shu, which translates to waiting. But the symbol for this hexagram is not a person sitting idly. It is the image of clouds rising into the sky. The clouds are heavy with rain, yet the rain has not yet fallen. This is a state of nourishment. The sky is waiting, but it is not empty. It is pregnant with the coming storm. We often view the slow periods of our lives, the impermanencia of our success, or the winters of our soul, as a kind of death. When we lose a job, or when a creative well runs dry, or when we feel a sudden lack of direction, we panic. We feel we have fallen out of the flow. But the Tao teaches us that everything in nature must return to its root to rest. A field that is forced to produce crops every single season without a break will eventually become a desert. To refuse to wait is to refuse the very osmosis of life that allows for a future harvest. In our frenetico pursuit of endless growth, we have forgotten how to honor our personal winters. We treat ourselves like machines that should be in a state of perpetual summer, always producing, always on. This is why we are plagued by burnout. It is the soul's way of forcing a wait that we were too proud to choose for ourselves. The Shu hexagram tells us that waiting is the period of nourishment before the rain. It is a time to eat, to drink, to be merry, and to fortify the spirit. It is not a gap in your life. It is the maturation of your next great cycle. When you find yourself in a period where nothing seems to be moving, do not fight it. Do not descend into the abysmo of self-doubt. Instead, recognize it as a transfiguration of your energy. You are returning to the source. You are like the bear in hibernation. Your heart rate has slowed. Your breath is deep. And while the world thinks you are sleeping, your body is performing the deep work of survival and renewal. This is the strategic hibernation. If you can learn to inhabit this phase with grace, you will find that when the rain of opportunity finally falls from the clouds, you are not exhausted and brittle. You are saturated. You are ready. You are nourished. We return, then, to the old farmer sitting at the edge of his field. The rain is falling now, a soft, persistent gray veil that blurs the line between the earth and the sky. He is no longer pulling at the sprouts. His hands are weathered, resting peacefully on his lap, palms open to the heavens. He has learned the hardest lesson of all, that he is not the master of the world, but a guest within it. He is watching his rice grow, not because he is forcing it, but because he has provided the space for it to happen. The strategic art of waiting is not about being a victim of time. It is about becoming a partner with it. It is the realization that your life is not a race to be won, but a ceremony to be inhabited. When you close your eyes tonight, I want you to feel the resonancia of this truth. You are exactly where you need to be. The delay you are experiencing is not a punishment. It is a preparation. The silence you are hearing is not an absence. It is a presence. There is a profound, safe belonging in the Tao. It is the knowledge that the sun will rise without your help, and the seasons will turn without your permission. You can let go of the heavy burden of being the architect of every second. Take a deep breath and feel the weight of the world drop from your shoulders. You are a part of the flow, and the flow never misses a beat. The Tao never misses a deadline. You can afford to wait. You can afford to be still. For in that stillness, you finally discover that everything you were chasing has already arrived, waiting for you to simply stop long enough to notice it. Go now, and walk slowly. The world will still be there when you arrive.